Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Amna Gul from the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication. We're back with the course Development Support Communication, bearing the code GMC 413. The topic today is Development Communication Approaches. Actually, it's about development communication approaches in intergovernmental and non-governmental agencies. And the theoretical changes and the perspectives on development communication have also reached the level of policymakers. As a result, different methodologies and terminologies have evolved, which often make it difficult for agencies, even though they share a common commitment to the overall goals of development communication, to identify common ground, arrive at a full understanding of each other's perspectives and objectives, or to cooperate effectively in operational projects. Communication theories such as the diffusion of innovation, the two-step flow, or the extension approaches are quite congruent with the elitist, vertical, or top-down orientation of diffusion model. However, the reality often proves much more complex than theory. During discussions on international political and academic forums, new insights on the role and place of communication for development emerged, which favor two-way and horizontal communication. Therefore, in 1989, the UNESCO started a UNFPA-financed project on integrated approaches into development communication. Its objectives were to review the various approaches and methodologies, to identify their differences and common features, and to create a framework for integrated and cooperative action. Thus, a variety of theoretical models can be used to devise communication strategies for development. In contrast with the more economical and politically oriented approach in traditional perspectives on modernization and development, the central idea is alternative, more culturally oriented versions of multiplicity and sustainable development, is that there is no universal development model which leads to sustainability at all levels of society and the world. That development is an integral, multidimensional, and dialectic process that can differ from society to society, community to community, context to context. See, no doubt there are a variety of theoretical models that can be used for devising any communication strategies for development. But the more economical and politically oriented approach in traditional perspectives on modernization and development, that is not that much supportive. Now, the diffusion model is more economical. It is more politically oriented approach towards development, and it is basically stems from the idea of modernization. The alternative idea is rather culturally oriented. It has multiplicity for sustainable development, and that it understands that there is no single universal development model that leads to sustainability at all levels of the society and the world. Thus, development is integral, it is multidimensional, but it is a dialectic process that can differ from one society to another, it can differ from one community to another, it can differ from one context to another. Since each case and each context is different, none has proven to be completely satisfactory. There is no one completely satisfactory option. So, in other words, each society and community must attempt to delineate its own strategy to sustainable development. So we do not need to follow something. We actually need to work it out for ourselves. What works for one society? What works for one community? What is more appropriate for a certain context? This implies that the development problem is a relative problem, that no one society can contend that it is developed in every respect. So the concept that some are the dominant ones is, it's not like that. Not a single society can state that they are developed in every aspect, because there are so many aspects to development. Therefore, we believe that the scope and degree of interdependency must be addressed in relationship with the content of the concept of development. Distinct development communication approaches and communication means used can be identified within organizations working at distinct societal and geographic levels. Some of these approaches can be grouped together under the heading of diffusion model, others under the participatory model. I'll be discussing the major ones identified here. Okay, so we'll be starting off with the first one is extension or diffusion of innovation as a development communication approach. The extension or diffusion of innovation approach is based on the modernization paradigm and Everett Rogers' diffusion of innovation theory. Extension is concerned with the staged process of technology transfer in a top-down fashion from researcher or experts or other producers of innovation to potential users of these research results. The conventional scope of extension remains in the agricultural field, but the contemporary one has broadened to a wide range of subjects such as environmental issues, small business enterprise, trainings, and technology transfer. Therefore, the clientele served can be urban people as well. This approach is to inform the audience or to persuade a behavioral change in a predetermined way. Contemporary variations re-examine the messages, the needs of the audience, the initial knowledge of the audience, and the agenda setting between the researchers and the farmers or the clientele. The next is network development and documentation. The dominant approach requires networking through computerized satellite telecommunication links or the internet as a basic infrastructure. The provision of analytical and contextualized flows of information regarding development, events, and issues through telecommunication services or the internet are designed, implemented, and researched to support the process of development. In news reporting, this kind of networking allows journalists from Global South to voice their views and exchange news events from their perspectives to counterbalance the mainstream or traffic of data and information flows from the north. Not only this approach allows the peripheral to central flow in the information in the world system context, it also supports those in the peripheral to central flow within the peripheral arenas itself. New actors are thus identified, such as women, rural people, and children in the developing world. This approach could contribute to interesting spin offs such as online training programs, distance education, information exchange, and the establishment of alternative networks. So, what does it actually do? Basically, it's more based on networking through computerized satellite telecommunications or internet as its basic infrastructure. So, it actually provides people, those who are marginalized, it gives them the opportunities to voice their point of view. For example, it can be journalists from those parts of the country, those parts of the world who do not have their say in the news media to give their perspective on news, on different happenings. And thus the flow of information is not only from peripheral to center, but from center to peripheral as well. And thus there are new actors that are identified, which can be rural people, children, or women in the developing world. And thus it gives, as I just mentioned, and it's mentioned for you, that it can give us interesting spin-offs, which can be like there can be training programs, distance education. It is all based on networks So there is no need for same physical space. It can be online space and stuff like that. So the trainings can be done, distance education can work out, there can be a lot of information exchange opportunities, and thus new alternative networks can also be established. Then going towards the third one, which is ICTs for development. Information and communication technologies, they are known as ICTs. Excuse me. Okay. Information and communication technologies, also known as ICTs, such as computer and telecommunication technology, especially the internet, are used to bridge the information and knowledge divide between the haves and the have-nots. Like haves are those who are developed, and have-nots are those who are considered as underdeveloped. Having access to the digital highways helps improve access to education opportunities, increase transparency and efficiency in government services, enhance direct participation from the used to be silent public in the democratic process, increase trade and marketing opportunities, enhance community empowerment by giving a voice to the voiceless groups, for example, women and vulnerable groups such as those who live with HIV or AIDS, create networking and income opportunities for women, access to medical information for isolated communities, and increase new employment opportunities. In developing countries, the local appropriation of ICTs is a telecenter or multimedia community center consisting of desktop publishing, community newspaper, sales or rentals of audio and video cassettes and DVDs, book lending, photocopying, faxing, and telephone services. So it can be a long list of options. Access to the internet and the World Wide Web can be optional. The use of the mobile and satellite telephony can help small entrepreneurs and rural farmers getting access to information needed to improve their livelihood. ICTs can be a powerful tool for sharing information, but they often cannot solve the development problems caused by the underlying social, economic, and political issues, nor can they change the existing power structures, as the information available is not necessarily knowledge. In order to become knowledge, the information has to make sense to the people who receive this information. So it is good, it has a lot of opportunities out there, but since it is just information available or the appropriate setups available, so it's not necessary that it can solve the problems, because there are certain underlying social, economic, and political issues that need to be sorted out, and the information available to them is not necessarily knowledge. It can be just information which does not make much sense to the people who receive this information. And so that is the difference in it. Then the fourth, which is training or education and capacity building or strengthening. In cooperation with local training and development centers and universities, vocational and follow-up training systems are developed, implemented, and evaluated. This could be training for agency personnel and technicians, as well as the training of professional group of journalists or development communicators. To improve the quality of output and bilateral communication flows, exchange programs and networking are being developed. Communication manuals written by experts from first and third world countries serve as a guideline for scriptwriters, journalists, and educational radio workers. These handbooks and multimedia kits, both in hard copy and or digital, are often the outcome of workshops and conferences held with local experts and practitioners. So this is once again another approach that development takes place through education or through training, or you can call it as capacity building, and it works well in most cases. Like it's quite used quite extensively. Then the fifth is social marketing. Social marketing is the application of commercial marketing techniques to solve social problems. It is also a multidisciplinary approach because it concerns education, community development, psychology, and communication. Roy Colley states that it is a process that assumes that what made McDonald's and Coca-Cola a world-class success can also have a dramatic impact on the problems of high blood pressure, or AIDS, or child mortality in developing nations, and other circumstances related to patterns of behavior. The process involves the planning, implementation, and monitoring of programs to persuade the acceptance of social ideas. The basic elements of the process lie on product, price, place, and promotion, the same marketing things. The product concept may be an object, idea, or behavioral change in a favorable way. The price concept is comparable to that of the commercial sector, but it is conceived in social cost terms such as missed opportunities, deviation from the established cultural norm, and so forth. Place refers to the channels through which the ideas or the product will be transmitted. Promotion refers to the use of mediated or interpersonal communication to make the product known among the audience or target groups. Social marketers commit themselves to people's health and well-being, are not profit-oriented, and are seeking a large market share than the commercial marketers. Education, entertainment, edutainment, double E. So it's both. It is edutainment as well as entertainment education. So it can be used as both, or it is the approach is a hybrid of participatory communication strategies and the diffusion model of communication. It combines the attraction of entertainment with educational messages to help educate, inform, and encourage behavior change to achieve development and social progress. This approach can employ traditional or indigenous media such as puppet shows, music, and dance to promote issues in healthcare, literacy programs, environmental protection, and introducing agricultural practices. These forms of communication can be integrated with electronic media such as radio, television, video, and audio cassettes. The important point is that the programs are produced locally to appeal to the local audience. Another offshoot of this approach is applying the social marketing strategies to help embed the development issues in melodramatic soap operas for radio and television, which use real or fictional social models to promote changes in lifestyles. These programs are adapted to local cultural contexts and integrate entertainment with awareness raising and education. It is often used in the raising of awareness in complex issues such as HIV and AIDS. So, in this lecture, we discussed some of the development communication approaches. We started off with the first, which was extension or diffusion of innovation model, which is to inform the audience or to persuade a behavioral change in a predetermined way. Then we moved to network development and documentation, which was actually basically once again about technology based. Yeah. So use of computerized satellite telecommunication or links or the internet as basic infrastructure. Then we moved to the third one, which was ICTs for development. And it was as such about computer and telecommunication technology, especially the internet, used to bridge the information and knowledge divide between the haves and the have-nots. The fourth that we discussed was training education and capacity building or capacity strengthening. And we came to know that it was quite useful, especially to give voice to the voiceless. Finally, we ended with social marketing, where we saw that the basic elements of the marketing, product, price, place, and promotion are applied to on social levels. And here we discussed concept of education and entertainment education, that it is highly practical and it bears good results. So that's all for today, and we'll continue this lecture of development communication approaches in the next one as well.